Good morning, everyone. This is your 2-minute warning. Please make your way to your seats. This is your 2-minute warning. Please make your way to your seats. Please make your way to your seats. The program will begin shortly.
morning, everyone. Hello. Hello, Las Vegas, Southern Nevada. If I could ask everyone to just take their seat really quickly, we're going to get started here. I think we're seeing some momentum. Oh yeah. Good job, everybody. Starting to settle in. Well, good morning. I'm Betsy Fretwell. I'm an Executive Vice President at Switch, and I'm the proud chairwoman of the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance Board of 50 Directors. I cannot tell you how excited I am to see this crowd of over 600 people in person, all healthy, and we're all on the road to recovery and a strong economic output this year. I am so excited. Today, we've built a great lineup for you. You're going to hear from leaders at the state level, the regional level, and the local level to provide their insights on investments being made in the region through our economic development activities. All of you should have our annual report at your seat, so I encourage you to take a look at that and see what all we have accomplished in the last year. It was a banner year for LVGEA and our regional partners, our local government partners, and the businesses that we attracted to Southern Nevada. In fact, 39 new businesses, 6,235 new jobs. Exactly. We broke our record for the largest expansion in our history here since 2012 when we launched LVGEA. Additionally, you should have a community map at your seat that kind of gives you the highlights of what's planned and underway from a construction standpoint in Southern Nevada. So that's just the beginning, everyone. What I'd like to do quickly is just acknowledge our sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. Cox Communications has been a pinnacle investor in LVGEA for many years. They have had a $2.3 billion economic impact in the state of Nevada, and they have directly or indirectly created over 5,400 jobs themselves. Hats off to Cox Communications this morning. We're also very proud to recognize our champion sponsors this morning: Nevada Energy, Martin Harris Construction, UMR, the Las Vegas Raiders, Wells Fargo, Intermountain Health, and Bank of America. So thank you all very much for all you're doing to support our efforts. We'd also like to have a special shout out to innovation, development, and specialty sponsors. You'll see them listed throughout the program this morning, so thank you to your support as well. I'd also like to recognize my board members, our board members. We have an incredible team of 50 board members, and they're influential business leaders throughout our community. They're passionate about economic development, and I'm so proud to serve alongside them. So will the LVGEA 50 please stand? Don't be bashful. As I was moving around the room this morning, I saw more elected officials that I could even possibly mention and us get out anytime today. So I'd like to ask all of our Southern Nevada and statewide elected officials to please stand and let us give you a round of applause. So please stand. Don't be shy. I see some mayors not standing up. I see some state senators not standing up. One more time, people. You do a lot of hard work for us in representing us. All elected officials, please stand up. Come on. All right, I believe we have a video.
COVID-19 put a major strain on our state, and I am grateful to organizations like LVGEA that help diversify our economy and create a variety of opportunities for our workforce so that Nevada can do what we've always done, turn hard work into opportunity. Thank you for helping make Nevada a great place to live and work.
We are on the upswing, and you can see that when you look at the Strip, when you look at our communities, and when you look at the numbers. According to a Tax Foundation study, Nevada saw population gains, making it among the top 10 states people moved to in 2021. I want every business owner to know, whether you are settled here on the ground or looking to expand here, that the elected officials here support you. We are thrilled to see our economy rebound, and we're deeply grateful to every Nevada family for working so hard during such a dark time. The way our state pulled together makes me proud to call myself a Nevadan. Thank you.
Economic development is the way forward for Southern Nevada. It means more jobs, new jobs, different jobs. It means increased economic opportunity for Nevadans and Nevada businesses so that Nevada can continue to be an amazing place to both live and work.
My name is Shannon Bilbray Axelrod, and I'm the Assemblywoman for Assembly District 34 here in Southern Nevada. I believe in the importance of economic development because it's an important measure of the health and vitality of the community. Responsible growth benefits everyone, and it depends on the flow of capital through businesses helping Las Vegas thrive. It's crucial that we recognize new means and opportunities to allow our economy to grow in ways that reach us all. If you're seeing this, I believe you feel the same way about economic development, and I thank you.
Hello, I'm Assemblyman Tom Roberts, and I fully support economic development here in our great state. As Nevada's economy continues to recover from the pandemic and our population continues to expand, we must make sure that we are prepared for the jobs of tomorrow. We must find the proper funding for our infrastructure, our schools, for our first responders that protect us each and every day. Having a safe and well-educated community will continue to make Nevada a more attractive destination for new businesses and residents alike. Thank you.
Thank you to all the elected officials that took the time out of their schedule to share with us their thoughts about the importance of economic development. As we embark on this year, we've got a lot of really heady things on the list to do. We have a comprehensive economic development strategy that we're well underway in implementing. We're working on and focusing in on our target industries, which many of you contributed to those conversations and building those out. And one of the most significant efforts is our application for a Build Back Better grant through the Economic Development Administration, where we are hopeful that we will be the finalist for somewhere between $75 and $100 million worth of support from the federal government. $75 to $100 million worth of support. I bring these up because our next speaker, who's just an incredible guy, is going to share his thoughts about where we are as a state from an economic development front. He previously served as the Director of Business and Industry, and Governor Sisolak tapped him to lead the Governor's Office of Economic Development as we were going into the COVID crisis. And he stepped up. This man has 30 years of experience in the private sector leading the nation's largest gold mining industry with Barrick Gold. He did that with incredible style, grace, and outcomes. I'm proud to call him a good colleague, a very good friend, an incredible leader. Without him, we wouldn't have been able to do those three things and focus in on the right stuff and have the support from the governor's office. My friend, Michael Brown.
Thank you. Thank you.
Knock him dead, man.
Well, first off, I feel like I had lunch with half of you yesterday at the opening of the Dollar Loan Center. That was an amazing event. What an amazing facility. Although I do think if they're going to have lunch there regularly, they're going to have to put in space heaters because that floor was rather cold. Yeah. So, but it shows the resiliency of our hospitality economy that this has been able to be built so fast. Sports is really helping pull the hospitality sector through the through the recovery here in that sector, and we're so grateful that we had visionary leaders that launched that forward. We also have this going on in the lithium sector out in rural Nevada, where we are going to be able to build the entire chain from lithium extraction to processing to fabrication to application to use to eventual recovery and renewal. So we have a lot going on in our historic industries, but you know, we are the third most diverse state in the nation. We celebrate that diversity, but our economy still remains an economy that needs more diversity, and that's what I'm going to touch on today. Now, I'm joined by members of my staff, Chris Sanchez, the deputy in the South, Bob Potts, our deputy in the North, Melanie Sheldon, who leads our economic development activity, Greg Bordelin, our public information officer, and Jimmy Hum. All of those individuals were thrown into the effort to help the governor's office in the pandemic, and I so appreciated them taking on duties that were far outside of their responsibilities, and I'm so grateful. And I know that I have several board members here, and I saw Secretary Sagaski here, who's just doing an amazing job keeping our elections free from the frivolity that we're seeing in other parts of the country, and protecting the rights of peoples who were traditionally disadvantaged in elections and preserve their right to vote, and we're most grateful. You know, I'm in an interesting point in life now where I'm attending more memorials than I'm attending weddings. And a week ago, let me get the slide up here. Let's see here. Yeah. A week ago, let's see. A week ago, I joined Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio, where I'm from. I worked in the Ohio House of Representatives as a House page and then as a legislative assistant for the Speaker of the Ohio House, 38 years in the legislature, William Batchelder, the husband of the Chief Judge, Alice Batchelder of the Sixth Circuit Appeals Court in Cincinnati. Bill was a conservative leader, free market, Adam Smith necktie-wearing, laissez-faire conservative in the form of the great Senator Robert Taft, and the most affable, friendly legislator that you would ever encounter, who was able to build bridges across all parts of the political spectrum. And it's the kind of free market conservative legislator that we would celebrate in many parts of our libertarian state here. But Bill also understood that economic development needed more than low taxes and low regulation. His major accomplishment as Speaker was creating Jobs Ohio, which is the premier economic development operation at a state level of the 50 states. And because he knew that it wasn't just the invisible hand that helped create economies, but in a modern 21st century economy, the visible hand of government, the visible hand working with the private sector in job creation and economic activity were as crucial as the values he held as an Adam Smith conservative. And so, you know, that's the space that GOAD occupies. It's the space that LVGA occupies. You know, we function as mentors and as coaches and as facilitators and troubleshooters, and we're assisted by our local government economic development officers, and I get to meet with these fine folks once a month, and it's always great. Now, Bill had a lot of trouble with the modern age. I mean, he was still suspicious of typewriters. When they put the metal detectors into the Ohio State House one day, he just raced right by him. And the young security guard ran after him and said, sir, do you work for the state? And Bill replied, no, I've spent my life working against the state. Well, I now find myself working for the state in a political appointment of Governor Sisolak. I actually always wanted to be a cabinet member. I got exposed to, when I worked with Bill, to the operations of state government. Cabinet members, well, I like to say that it's like a Southwest flight. The elected officials have the aisle seats. The civil service, they have the window seats. And you, as the appointed cabinet member, well, you've got that center seat, you know, and you've kind of got to work both sides. But it's that part of government where you can take the energy and what comes from the people through their elected officials and translate it with the civil service, but also take what the civil service has institutionally known and bring that forward to help the elected officials make the right decision. And so, you know, I met Elliot Richardson when I was in high school and just worked for 3 Treasury secretaries. I didn't think it'd take 30 years to get to this kind of a job, but I really, really do enjoy it. I don't think my mother ever figured out what I was talking about. I'm sure when I talked about cabinet, she was worried the sawdust would affect my sinuses, but anyway, LVGA is one of our regional economic development authorities. It is chartered as a nonprofit. It is state supported, and we're very grateful to work with them. They're our boots on the ground. I've had the opportunity now to work with Betsy for the last 2 years, and I have to tell you the contribution that she made during the crisis period of the pandemic, which started this week, is when my agency got mobilized. For the next 5 months, as we dealt with the crisis part of the pandemic, she helped us create a business information network that distributed official information on a regular basis all through. Like I say, we worked on the public information part. When I took this job, I did not envision I would be sitting with the governor and the National Guard and the public health authorities trying to manage a pandemic, but we made our way through that. Help from Jim Murrin and a lot of people in this room on that area. And then we shifted to the relief area. And the Bank of England had once written that they were very good at figuring out how to stabilize financial institutions, but they weren't sure how to do it with coffee shops. Well, with the governor's support, we had $120 million in CARES Act dollars that the treasurer and I were able to use to help stabilize small businesses, trade associations, the arts and nonprofits, and other institutions across Nevada. It was probably the largest per capita deployment of CARES dollars in small business. We were also the first of the 50 states to qualify all of our counties for disaster relief in that area and help stabilize our small businesses at their moment of crisis. Meanwhile, while we were doing that, my staff was working with Stanford Research Institute, SRI International, and Brookings Mountain West, and other very thoughtful people on what does Nevada look like afterwards. However, some of the best advice came from an LVGA meeting last November, when many of you heard Christopher Thornburg speak, and he said that the highest return on investment for ARP dollars would be in the area of affordable housing, broadband, and childcare. And he asserted that those would do the most to advance economic recovery. And that's why the boss, let's see here, in his State of the State last week, Nevada on the Move, we have allocated a record $500 million that will flow into affordable housing, $160 million into childcare, $500 million into broadband, also recognizing, addressing areas of stepping up in our startup sector by support of a business accelerator, initiatives in workforce development, and finally occupational licensing reform. But that all started here. And when I heard that advice, we took it in place. I mean, I am situated with the assistance of Bob Potts. We have a little economist group that meets monthly since the pandemic started, or weekly, excuse me, and gives the governor financial advice. And I'm in the situation of being able to give them advice on what I saw. But Governor Sisolak, we're both blue-collar kids from the Midwest. Our fathers were United Auto Workers who lost their jobs, and we kind of had to make our way, both first generation to college. So I understand what he's trying to do, and I'm pleased to support him. And I have to tell you, when I watched him have to make some of the decisions he had to make, any fantasy that I might have entertained of ever wanting to be governor disappeared at that moment. Those were hard decisions. But today's a moment of celebration. We have come through it. A pandemic that my church rector said insidiously wormed its way into every aspect of our lives, our bodies, our families, our schools, our churches, and our economies and our body politic. It appears to have finally been vanquished, and we need to celebrate that. And we now have this wonderful Great Gatsby moment on this, with folks, you know, after being cooped up for 2 years or out celebrating, and many of them have chosen to come to Las Vegas to celebrate. It's also, though, a time of remembrance. We lost over 9,000 Nevadans to the pandemic. That's equal to the population of the city of Fallon. It's also a moment of hope as we work together to rebuild our relationships, our economy, and our society. However, in 1 week, the Russian invasion of the Ukraine has veered history into a new direction. None of us know where it's going, but it's challenging the entire post-war consensus that was established in the Atlantic Charter by President Churchill and President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill. And so we all are Ukrainians today as we all stand and watch the freedom fighters defend their nation. You know, listening to, it's ironic that the first pandemic came after the First World War, and as we finally vanquish this pandemic, we face this kind of a global crisis. But we all have to stand for freedom and abroad, and I am hoping that watching those freedom fighters in the Ukraine eliminate some of the grievance-driven, trivial politics that we've experienced in the United States. The future is not a straight line. George Will said, "The future has a way of arriving unexpectedly." And as I look towards Nevada's future, our recovery does not necessarily come from rebound, but from rebalancing. Rebalancing will build the resiliency that we need in the Nevada economy going forward. Now, there is a tradition at these kinds of breakfast meetings to preach the prosperity gospel and to make everyone feel really great and not talk about some of the harder things. And so I can talk about the fact that we just ranked as in the top spot for economic momentum by one of the national rating agencies, that GOED's brought 80 companies into the state with 12,000 jobs during the pandemic, that we have diversified our economy, that we no longer have 4 large employers, we now have 8 large sector employers. Our unemployment rate has now fallen to 5.2%, and interestingly enough, we have more jobs created in Reno right now than existed before the pandemic. And that we have companies like Google and Neuro and VU and the Ball Corporation. So we have some of the most innovative companies in the world coming here, and we have the Ball Corporation, which is one of the oldest companies on the New York Stock Exchange, coming here. I mean, that I can discuss, but I think we also have to talk about the challenges. This community has had a history of big swings, big ups and downs. And when it comes out of the down, it gets back up again, it thinks that'll go on forever. And in fact, it did a study in 1970 where they said, you know, Atlanta and Salt Lake City and Denver, you know, they're trying to diversify their economies, but we're fine in Las Vegas. We have a hospitality sector, and the test site will be great. But look what's happened. And so we need to build more resiliency, and we need to rebalance it. And we've achieved that in the North. And it's also especially important because this is a very unique opportunity in global capital deployment around the world. Now, when we look at our competitive position, oh, it's down there. We'll skip that one. You all know that. They measure economic diversification on a score of 100. We score at 73. Now, that's up from where we were 2 years ago. That's good news, but we're still the lowest in the Pacific time zone. And right next to us sit Arizona and Utah, which score at nearly 100. Very robust, very much growing economies. When I break it out by county, Washoe County comes up at about 89%. Clark County comes in at 45%. That's about the same diversification level as West Virginia, only it's not coal, it's hospitality. And yet, right now, there is an incredible move and shift in capital going on across the world. As the just-in-time inventory systems failed, as e-commerce advanced 10 years in 1 year, we have a whole series of companies that want to reshore, want to come back to the United States, want to sort out their delivery systems, sort out their inventory systems. And they started calling at the first of last year because they've been scrambling to hold themselves together. And why are they interested in Nevada? Because first, our Pacific time zone location with access to the Pacific ports and access to the Pacific Rim. They no longer want all of their products clogged up at the Columbus airport. So we have had a massive expansion of logistics and distribution companies in here. In fact, they absorbed, I believe, 18,000 unemployed hospitality workers during the pandemic. We have had all sorts of Fortune 100, 200 companies looking at us here, wanting to put that location in the Pacific time zone here in Nevada. The challenge that we have, particularly in manufacturing, is our industrial parks are not where I would really want them to be. We struggle with issues of infrastructure, we struggle with issues of land. That's why LVGEA is leading this initiative to try to get federal funds to help us stand this up and make us more globally competitive. Because they're not only looking at us, but they're looking at Arizona and they're looking at southern Utah. This is a historic opportunity to land this investment. And McKinsey believes that it will basically be concluded by 2025. So we are racing to deal with those issues. It's why we've been working with Senator Cortez Masto in the lands bill to get more land for industrial development, because that's the first question they ask is, where can we go? The second is that Chris Sanchez led an infrastructure group here to understand what our infrastructure gaps are. We need to do more with intermodal. We need to do more with rail. We have actually created a coalition with California and the Long Beach ports in Utah and Arizona to try to sort out the rail system from the ports so that we can take advantage of that. The next thing they want to know is, what about our workforce? What can we do there? You see the governor launched initiative on community college and apprenticeships. We need to do more in that space. We also have to make sure that as we bring these companies here, we address issues of equity. Disproportionate population, or disadvantaged populations have been disproportionately affected by the economic downturn. We need to make sure that those jobs land in the historic West Side and other places down here in the Valley, and we make a deliberate effort to make that happen. We have to be mindful of water and climate change. The first question we're now asking any company interested in Southern Nevada is, what's your water situation? We're also holding companies to higher standards. We do a compliance check on them to make sure they've been good corporate citizens wherever they have come from. We also ask them about their environmental, social, and governance compliance and goals. My office will be launching a small business initiative with Treasury dollars of $110 million in the small business area. That will be launched over the next year. That is a 10-year program to help small businesses here in the state. We will be launching areas in the area of startups and the accelerator. We've had a lot of venture capitalists move here that want to invest in the startup community here. We recognize we're working with outdoor recreation on initiatives because Nevada's become a great place as a remote work hub. And I've been again working with the treasurer, with the governor's support on standing up the state infrastructure bank so that we can address some of these other infrastructure challenges we have. Now, I will say, Arizona is my direct competitor. I wake up every day and I read 5 newspapers, and the 5th newspaper I read is the Phoenix Business Press. because the companies that are now talking to us are also talking to them. And so we need to understand our competitive position in the world. The other thing we've got to do is act more as a region. I am so pleased that Tina Quigley will be leading LVGEA. I lived in Salt Lake for 5 years in the teens, and I'm now very familiar with Arizona. They have much more of a regional approach to addressing their infrastructure challenges, their workforce challenges. We have managed, as we apply for these EDA grants, to achieve that. We had one group that I led with Bo Bernhardt and with LVGEA for the LVGEA grant, and we had another group that Marilyn Kirkpatrick and others led for workforce. We have these 2 massive grants that we've asked for, and they were all done on Zoom calls, and when we were all done, Jaime from Workforce Connections said, this is the first time that we've ever all been on the same call together working on something. Well, you know, on the East Coast, the sport that I engaged in there was rowing, and the boat always goes in the same direction. You hear, well, we've got to row in the same direction. No, it'll go in the same direction. The key is whether all the oars will go in the water at the same time and come out of the water at the same time. And that's the kind of regional collaboration that we need to foster. That happens through the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance. If you aren't members, I hope you would consider it. This is about creating the future for Southern Nevada. I can put all the theory together. I can show you that it's working, that we are diversifying our employers, that we're no longer just in the hospitality area. And I can show you the kinds of innovative companies that we're bringing here, but we really have to all do this together, and we need your support, and this organization needs your support, and I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity today, and I know that some of you out there helped me in the pandemic, and you know who you are, and I will be forever grateful for the assistance you provided me in that period of March to May of 2020, and it's a pleasure to lead this endeavor. Thank you so much. Thank you.
If Director Brown had not had a rowing example, we would have had a do-over. It's my honor to invite up our next panel of experts from all of the local governments. So if you would please join me up here, Derek Armstrong, Director of Economic Development and Tourism for the City of Henderson. Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development for Clark County. George Galt, City Council Member, City of Mesquite. Jared Luke, Director of Government Affairs and Economic Development, a twofer, for the City of North Las Vegas. Ryan Smith, Director of Economic and Urban Development for the City of Las Vegas. And new to the stage, Taylor Tedder. He is the new city manager for the City of Boulder City. Welcome. So, first off, I'd like to say thanks to Director Brown for really laying a very sound foundation of where we've been, where we're going, and areas where we can make inroads. These people that are joining us on the stage, they're going to make it happen. Many of you know I'm a former city manager. I was the city manager of the City of Las Vegas for a long time, and I pretty much worked with every one of these people that are up on the stage. And I know what it takes, what they're doing to move the needle forward. So I'm excited to hear their message today, and I've got a few questions for them. Some softballs, some not. So the first thing I want to do is start off with them by asking them a 2-word answer to a question. 2 words. This is the challenge of the day, all right? What is the greatest opportunity and the most significant obstacle for economic development for your jurisdiction this year? All right, you get 1 second to think about it. I'm not starting with the new guy. That's just wrong. But because I told Jared Luke I was going to pick on him, Jared's going first. Jared.
Apex.
All right, Ryan.
Say healthcare policy.
All right. All right. How about you, Taylor?
I would say supporting businesses.
All right. Shawnee?
Talent.
Uh-huh. And talent?
Talent and talent. Diversity, I would
All
say.
right. All right. George?
Workforce.
Workforce.
And workforce.
All right. How about you, Derek?
Going last, I have to come up with something different, right? Let's go available land.
Available land. So you could see a lot of the same kind of themes that we heard from Director Brown this morning. Land, workforce, infrastructure, right? Education systems. And Tina's going to hit on that in her closing remarks from a regional perspective. Jared, you brought up Apex, water lines, infrastructure, lots of private in-holdings in your major industrial park. Tell us a little bit about that, what your challenges are and what you see happening.
How much time do we have? Apex is an interesting anomaly in and of itself. It's 18,000 acres, 8,000 to 9,000 acres is developable, but it's all privately held. And so from an economic diversification perspective from a municipality, it's how do I approach that? How do we approach that as a city and integrate with the private landholders and the private developers and still have an influence on what the city needs to be built there? What jobs need to be built there for the residents? Infrastructure is a problem. It's an issue. It always has been out there. We live in a desert, for those of you that are new to the valley. You just don't get two sticks and find a hole and dig it and there's a well and water just springs up. If you look at the growth of the 15 heading north where the Speedway Industrial Park is at, the minute utilities hit, that 1,000+ acres was absorbed in a number of years. You can't find more than 10 acres in that industrial park. Heading north through Apex, we're envisioning 5 different industrial parks just because of the scope and the size of it. The benefit of it is that we have figured out a way, and I want to give props to all the landowners out in Apex, the private developers, the engineers that are working on that industrial park, that we have kind of figured out a way to work as a nucleus and as a nexus for making sure that the proper end users in the logistics departments and companies that are being focused on coming to Southern Nevada are putting the right jobs in place so it's sustainable for our community in North Las Vegas and for the valley as a whole.
Thank you. It is a very challenging development, and North Las Vegas has done an incredible job working with the county, Water Authority, and a whole host of other agencies to bring these several thousand acres into a developable condition. So hats off to you all for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Councilman Galt to talk a little bit about a major success they've had this year. They were able to attract Crown Holdings, who will be making beverage cans, and I think this might be one of the biggest wins we've ever partnered on. Will you tell us a little bit about that and what opportunities that holds for the region?
I think it's going to be a game changer. I suspect that all of the people in this room, when you think of Mesquite, you think of golf, gaming, maybe outdoor recreation, and retirees. We do that well. There's some problems with that, and what Director Brown talked about in terms of rebalancing, that's a critical issue for us since, let's see, our median age is 60. 40% of our population is over 65. You think you got workforce problems? The Crown Cork and Seal win that happened with the partnership of LVGEA is, in my opinion, the opportunity to change the direction of Mesquite and do things like provide jobs where kids can go to work and make family wages and stay in town. They will build 355,000 square feet, employ 120 some people at average wages of $26 an hour.
Excellent.
I think one of the opportunities we're going to have is a lot of backfilling of wage jobs where people leave to go get trained for working at Crown. We also have 3 other manufacturing businesses coming at the same time. We have almost 200 new jobs.
Wow.
Housing is going to be the next issue,
Thank you.
well as education. And one of the things that we're working on is a fascinating opportunity. The Frias Trust recently donated a shopping center to a nonprofit. If we will create a STEM center, I mentioned that to Director Brown this morning, saying that I will be back to see you shortly. My goal and my hope is that we can create a talent pipeline, working with schools and creating some STEM programs that lead right into those educational opportunities and those work opportunities.
So I think this shows you how much opportunity is coming as a result of one major landing of a company like that. It matters. And it's changing Mesquite for the better going forward, and introduces some of the challenges that we've been talking about. I have to pivot to talk to Shawnee. So Shawnee and I worked together for a very long time at the city, and even when I was there, she was a rising star. And then my friend Yolanda King stole her from the city to start off a new function at Clark County that really had been mothballed, frankly, since Bob King had run the economic development activities back in the 90s. So Shawnee had to start from scratch, build out an entire new program for Clark County, and she's well underway in developing a marketing and branding effort. And I think it'd be really helpful to have her share with us where they're going with that and what it means for Clark County.
Betsy, thank you. First of all, I'm as the only woman sitting up here, and Betsy, it's Women's History Month. Can we get a shout out to all the women in the room making it happen? I think that's important. One of the great things about economic development is you have to sell and tell your story. And so, as Betsy said, Clark County is relatively new back into this space, and so we really wanted to identify and have people understand what Clark County is about business. And so everybody knows Clark County is about the Strip. And so we had the opportunity to do some surveys, get some information. A number of you were involved in that communication. And so what we wanted everybody to know is that, Clark County is bright beyond the lights, right? There is so much that Clark County has to offer. We have a wonderful university. We have wonderful assets in our airport. We have new assets coming online with Brightline. Our Department of Aviation is working on a new supplemental airport, South Corridor. So really, we just wanted to be able to tell that narrative for all of Clark County, but also for unincorporated Clark County. We're playing a little bit of catch up here. All of my counterparts here have had economic development departments, been rolling for years and decades, and so Clark County wanted to make a bold statement about what Clark County has to offer for the entire valley, but especially for unincorporated Clark County.
Thank you, Shawnee. A lot of work to be done there to kind of rebuild a program and share all those attributes, because all of those, that list of assets that Shawnee just rattled off, are critical to new businesses. And one of the areas that oftentimes seems a little unsung here in Southern Nevada is a focus on entrepreneurialism. And I'd like to ask Ryan Smith to talk a little bit about that, because he has been focusing in on that at the City of Las Vegas to great effect. So, you mind sharing some of that story with us?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Betsy. I think, we're really focused on building the infrastructure for entrepreneurs and startups to be successful here. And that means a couple different things. I think when you think about, is Las Vegas a destination for startups and entrepreneurs? Yes or no? And then do we have the infrastructure in place here for a startup that had an idea, a person that lives here, to actually build a successful business? And so I think it's top down and bottom up. And when we kind of looked at the landscape, and credit to Jeff Sailing I know Heather Brown's here with Startup Vegas, and there's been a lot of effort, but really there was no accelerators in Las Vegas. There wasn't a lot of VC capital looking at businesses in Las Vegas. We've had a couple success stories, but it's really getting those groups together, and I think it's extremely important in diversifying the economy. Obviously, every industry that we go after has some form of technology integrated in them, right? Like this is the 21st century. This is a new wave. Even from an industrial perspective, they're using technologies in everything that they do. So we've had a big effort to get a lot of those ideas, companies birthed here locally in Nevada, and that's a whole chain. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to happen for someone to come up with an idea to then employ 1,000 people. But credit to Bo Bernhard at UNLV, credit to Karsten Heist at the state of Nevada. He's been great, and we are working very hard to try to set up that infrastructure for Southern Nevada and Las Vegas to be successful in growing local companies here.
You know, it's interesting because a lot of comparisons are drawn between Southern Nevada's diversity efforts and Northern Nevada's diversity efforts. And when you talk to Mike Kazmierski from EDON, which is the group that does most of the stuff in Northwest Nevada, Reno and Washoe County, et cetera, he credits a lot of their success to their entrepreneur program. Ryan, just a quick follow-up question. How do you feel about that? Do you think that same kind of play can work here? And how does Las Vegas fit into that?
I think yes, it can. I think we have actually more startups here. I think it's more of it's just a concerted effort, right? I mean, it's bringing awareness. I don't know if anybody in this room can name the unicorns that have been birthed here in Las Vegas, but
maybe Switch. Just
yeah.
saying. Oh.
We definitely have Switch, Sightline Payments, Play Studios. So there's influential. There's a bunch of companies, and I feel like a lot of people don't know. Honestly, there hasn't been a major focus on entrepreneurs, and I think now that after the pandemic, there's a lot of people moving to Vegas. There's a lot of people moving from LA, San Francisco. Director Brown talked about remote work and startups, and now there's a huge opportunity for us to capitalize, and there's definitely education that needs to go on why these types of people are important. They're not the sexy, Tesla and Haas coming in and just immediately, bringing in 2,000, 5,000 jobs, but this is necessary in terms of future growth for the city, and they can become employers that employ 1,000 people, and then you go into, everybody mentioned workforce here, and George has some issues in Mesquite, but that's kind of a secondary. Once companies start, if a technology company grows from 50 to 500 people here, are they going to be able to employ people here? And that's kind of in my mind, the second leg to the stool.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Derek Armstrong to give us some feedback. So, the City of Henderson has had some incredible success in advanced manufacturing and, frankly, professional sports, as was witnessed yesterday. But part of their success is a key component in our evaluation for the Build Back Better grant. The West Henderson build-out has tremendous infrastructure needs. They've got an incredible partnership with CSN to support Haas and other companies that are seeking to relocate into Southern Nevada. And I just wanted to have you talk a moment, Derek, about how important that Build Back Better money is to creating that workforce training center, taking what you all have created and taking it to the next level as a center of excellence.
Thanks, Betsy, and thanks for having us here to talk about this. But first, thank you for the shout out for the Dollar Loan Center. It's a great public-private partnership with the Golden Knights, and they're a great partner with the DLC and then also Lifeguard Arena, and we've seen that expansion of sports through the investments of private industry and the public on that. West Henderson is exploding in growth, right? We're not able to the demand for that area for manufacturing is great. It's great to see. They're great jobs, and I think it aligns with the vision of the city and being really selective in the companies that we're going out and talking to. And I think Director Brown was right in his comments talking about we just don't need to do economic development. We need to do the right kinds of economic development, whether that's saying no to some companies, whether that's a large bottling manufacturer that's going to use a ton of water and it just doesn't make sense. Through SNWA's efforts in looking at technologies like evaporative cooling and really seeing how that plays out, it's asking those companies and going after the manufacturing that makes sense. Our partnership with CSN for the Workforce Training Center is, I think, going to be one of those critical components to that. The city funded a phase 1 of that, which broke ground in January, which will be a 17,000 square foot Center of Excellence for Advanced Manufacturing. The Building Back Better grant, we pivoted from our original proposal, which was the 15 via Nobila interchange, which is still critical in developing out that area for direct access to the 15, but will be a second facility, which will add another 20,000 square foot to help manufacturing education across the sector. And we can't thank CSN enough for their partnership. The city will own those buildings, but CSN will be able to provide the day-to-day operations and curriculum and training in those facilities. And we've reached out to manufacturers across the valley to help provide input in what they need to make sure that what we're providing is correct and that the students that will be trained there will be employable right after their graduation. But as we're talking about economic development, it's not only creating that pipeline of talent, which I think for all of us on stage is the core of our principle, creating upward economic mobility for individuals and their families for a high quality of life, because ultimately that's what we're here for. But it's going to help us be more attractive and competitive when we're competing with Arizona and surrounding areas, having a tool showing that the city and the region are committed to helping create that pipeline of talent. So I think it's transformative in nature in what we're doing there.
And you know, there's quite a bit of work that's going on at CSN and our other institutions of higher ed to build out these workforce partnerships all across our valley. I know there's some contemplated in the city of Las Vegas and in North Las Vegas, and the EDA is partnering along the way to try and help fund some of those creative workforce solutions. So help's on the way, right? Let's hope. Taylor, you are the city manager of Boulder City, and Boulder City has a unique perspective on growth and growth management. You've also had a major investment in solar infrastructure in your city. Can you talk about how those two things work together and what that means for the future economic prosperity of your city?
Sure. So Boulder City is such a wonderful community, and there's a reason that it's small, because we do have the controlled growth ordinance, but what people don't realize is that just regulates residential development, so 120 homes a year, which compared to some of the other municipalities up here, that's maybe one neighborhood. But anyway, so our city's been able to kind of be a leader on the forefront of renewable energy, solar energy. So we have a lot of really high-tech companies out there that are leaders in the renewable energy sector, and that's enabled us to keep our property taxes low for our businesses and residents. So that makes up about over $13 million in our budget. So from leasing the city-owned land to these solar companies. So it's been really interesting. And when I arrived to Boulder City in August, the tagline "Clean Green Boulder City." Well, I figured with all of our solar energy and electric vehicles and some of our power comes from Hoover Dam, well, that must mean that, you know, clean and green as in energy, but no, it means grass. One of my elected officials pointed that out to me quickly, and so in the times that we live in now, it's kind of a shift, looking at ways to further capitalize on that, and our small business community throughout the pandemic has thrived. We've had over 90 new businesses in our city of approximately 16,000, so we take that as a major win. and we're continuing to make sure we can do everything we can to support them with good permitting processes and things of that nature. So.
Awesome. So it's kind of interesting that we have this incredible asset of solar energy right in our valley, taking care of that kind of growth and bringing a new level of high-tech energy-related jobs to the fore. That's incredible. Thank you. You know, as you all were talking, one of the things I was thinking about is, as an existing business here, how are you all as local governments working with the folks that are here, the companies that are here trying to grow here, what they started here so they can stay here? How are you working with them on their workforce development needs, their hiring needs, particularly as we've kind of seen this, it's kind of a weird inflection point where we have, you know, quite a few people that are unemployed from the leisure and entertainment sectors, but there's still a lot of compression and difficulty in hiring, right? So we've kind of got a big challenge on our hands. I know LVGA has a BizConnect program. Perry does a great job talking to hundreds of businesses a year. The Chamber's doing an incredible job of retaining their members and trying to take care of their needs, workforce and otherwise. What are the local governments doing to try and help add to that? And I'll start with Derek.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I'll just give an example of a company was Henderson born and has grown to be something more substantial. So K2 was a startup in the business accelerator on Water Street through the Henderson Chamber. They grew outside of that. They then got to 65,000 square foot, and they produced lithium batteries. They had a spin-off from that called Lithium Energy. Lithium just entered into a lease over by Touro University, another great partner in Henderson. I know Shelley's here. But now they've entered into 70,000, and we're doing site selection for a 500,000 square foot building for them right now as well. So it's a great progress, but it shows that you can help a business from beginning to growth, and part of that is helping them find workforce as well, helping train. And we can't do that alone. I think it takes the partnerships that we have with CSN, with UNLVS, talking to Andrew Woods, and they're working on a white paper around lithium, and we'll help provide some of that feedback and how we can support that and provide that ecosystem as well. But then we get into workforce connections, and we were able to have them locate in City Hall last year with one of their employee NV hubs, which provides resources to employers to help pay for things like on-the-job training. So not only are we helping them get outside training, but provide the resources that help pay for that on-the-job training that employers do as well. So there's a number of ways that we help businesses. Obviously, Perry and the business retention program at LVGA is very important in that, and we do one-on-one meetings with the Chamber, LVGA, and the city as a collaborative to go into businesses to find out how we could be helpful, whether it's a permit to do a sign, find workforce resources, or anything else that might be available to them. So there's a host of ways that we're helping local businesses.
Thank you. Any others want to weigh in on your examples?
I want to mention one thing, and I know Director Brown mentioned this in his comments, but I will say Councilman Creer is here today in the historic West Side, the 100 Plan in action, and partnering with CSN, we got what I've researched as the largest direct grant for a workforce training center ever in the state of Nevada, right in the heart of the West Side. It's a $7 million, 10,000 square foot building that's going to provide job opportunities to some of the historically disadvantaged people. And just to put it in perspective, before the pandemic, the Valley had around 3% unemployment. It was 15% in the West Side, and to Councilman's credit, it was, hey, we're going to fix this. And so I do think there's a lot of opportunities. There's some great partners in this room, like Martin Harris, that are committed. Ahern is committed to helping solve that. And so there's a lot of resources. So that's the one good thing, right? We have a labor market, unemployment's coming down. People may or may not want to come back to work, or they're going to come back to work in a different way. But that's where I think this room, we really need the help. There's tons of money out there. Workforce development, retraining is like the buzzword, right? Like, how are we going to move into the future? So if there's any ideas, and I know Shawnee's put this out there too, but we really want to help solve it, and we need the input from people in this room to be able to solve that.
Thank you. Jared?
So 2 stories that I think kind of paint the picture of what North Las Vegas has done for its business community within the corporate boundaries of the city of North Las Vegas. If it's the community's problem, then it's our problem at City Hall. And when the pandemic was in full force, you know, everybody was wondering what to do. Do we lay folks off? What do we do? What do we do? And I've got to give some credit to, obviously, Mayor Lee and council and city management. But Forrest Lewis, our library director, had all this library staff, and at the time, you know, libraries were being shut down to the public. And we repurposed our library staff to call every single business within the corporate boundaries of North Las Vegas and assist them with their PPP. We have a lot of anecdotal stories and responses from business owners. One that sticks out was a young woman that called in and said, I own a business in 3 different cities in 3 different states, and you're the only one that called to make sure that I could navigate the PPP program successfully. So a lot of credit goes to council and to city management on that front. The other thing is I want to give a shout out. Bo seems, he probably should be up here just standing here so we can just pet him and say nice things about Bo at UNLV. But we partner with UNLV and the SBDC, and we put together the first ever, in conjunction with a municipal government in City Hall on the first floor of this Job Connector program. And the Job Connector program is there to assist entrepreneurs and startup businesses, as well as businesses that have been around for a minute that are just either experiencing growth struggles, need financing, need to know how do I get a business license, and then do I need a state license? What do I do? And we've been able to help hundreds, thousands of businesses and entrepreneurs and startups come through that business Job Connector on the first floor of City Hall. So again, we are focused on our businesses and the residents, because if they're not happy and they're not successful, then we're not successful at City Hall. So
Thank you. And a really great, Shawnee, you go? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
Okay.
I think, you know, I want to point out that, you know, Clark County had a strategic opportunity to assist small businesses. We were able to, you know, during the pandemic, touch about 4,800 businesses. About 45% of those were disadvantaged businesses as well. That was something very important to us, and we offered a slew of programs. I think for one of the first times ever, we were able to support legal aid in providing legal assistance to small businesses that were having challenges. We worked with LVGEA as kind of a resource navigator. They were able to make those phone calls and touch businesses and let them know what opportunities were out there. And we were able to provide emergency finance. We averaged about over $10,000 for small businesses that were struggling during the pandemic and needed help. But beyond that, we were able to work, we took a leadership role and were able to work with the other jurisdictions, and we pulled together a small business job fair, right? One thing that small businesses sometimes are not always seen and have an opportunity to compete in an environment in a job fair when you have the Caesars and the MGMs. And so we wanted to give small businesses an opportunity to attract that talent. We all supported a $500 sign-on bonus, so if a business was able to hire somebody at the job fair, we would contribute $500 as an incentive for that employee as well. Clark County has a small business opportunity program. That small business opportunity program was originally designed to help people become vendors of Clark County, but we're updating and expanding that program. We have a partnership with UNR Cooperative Extension. We're making that program virtual. We're making it available in multiple languages. So it'll be available in English and Spanish probably towards the summertime. So we're really excited about that opportunity as well. We have a pilot program where we help businesses move through our permitting and move through our regulatory process a little bit faster. So we were able to help the company Warby Parker, everybody knows Warby Parker. They were opening a new facility out here, and we were able to move them through our permitting and regulatory process in about 6 months, which allowed them to hire about 100 people a lot faster than they would have before. We're doing the same thing for a company called Temper Pack. Those are those of you who get food orders and you have the chill pack, they make they make that product. And so we were able to assist them as well going through that pilot program. And so we're looking at both small business, our regulatory process, how we can make things easier for business so they can hire people a lot faster.
Thank you. So George, we've got just a minute, so we're going to have to, I can't believe I'm having to do this to the elected official on the panel, so you only have a minute, but go ahead.
We've been working to put the training partnerships in place. We had a conversation earlier this week, Chris Zunis and our deputy city manager and myself with Crown, and said, you know, when can we start talking about training? And they said it's a couple of months out. When they were here during the site selection process, they urged us to create a permanent training center, which I think is a really interesting idea, and we're working on it. I discovered, I had a conversation yesterday with the COO of one of the gaming companies. Both our gaming companies are busing housekeeping staff from Vegas daily and back.
Wow.
So we need to create training in a variety of levels, it seems to me. Crown's going to need advanced manufacturing. We have a company that manufactures food trucks that's going to need what I call vocational training. Welding, plumbing, electrical. I mean, they take a truck chassis and put a commercial kitchen on it. And then we're going to need to help these gaming companies find workers. But in a conversation yesterday with that COO, he has a 30,000 square foot facility behind a hotel. They're both vacant.
Wow.
And he's willing to have a conversation about not only training, but temporary housing.
Thank you. You know, I'd like to thank the panelists. Let's put our hands together for all of them this morning. This is a perfect entree for our next speaker. So what I'd like to do is say thank you all very much for your time, your answers, and your hard work. As they exit the stage, I'd just like to say, I think we heard a lot of things during this conversation about the value of regionalism, collaboration, innovation, and kinda working out of our lanes. And as I introduce our next speaker, I want you to know that she brings the whole package when it comes to regionalism. She led our Regional Transportation Commission for a very long time. She worked at our airport for a very long time, 30 years in public service. She knows the insides, the outsides, the relationships, and the partnerships that are necessary from an infrastructure, community building, innovative partnership perspective, better than pretty much anybody I know. Her name is Tina Quigley. Come on up here. She is an asset to our community.
Thank you.
And we grabbed her at the LVGEA to lead up our next chapter in our history as we address these challenges in our community and take full advantage of these opportunities. And if anybody can do it, it's this lady right here. So welcome to the stage, Tina Quigley.
Thank you. I cannot tell you how excited I have spent a lot of time with you out there. And so, first of all, no applause for me. I haven't earned it yet, okay? I'm only on the job for 3 weeks, but very excited to be here. And one of the reasons is this board. I feel so blessed to be able to work with Betsy and the executive team and the members of the board, because these are people who aren't in it for investing in short-term wins for our community. These people like see the long-term, 20-year game, and that's exactly why it feels so comfortable for me to be in this position. All right, so I told you to hold that applause for me because I haven't earned it yet, but before I go too far, I want to go ahead and recognize somebody who does earn this applause, because there's been a few months gap between when Jonas Peterson left, the former president and CEO of LVGEA, and I came in, and our COO, Jared Smith. Jared, if you could stand up, please. And, oh, I need the, do I have, am I doing this right? Oh, shoot, no, gotta go back. So, Jared, thank you so much. He has been doing both jobs, and at the same time, he's been one of the lead coordinators on this very big grant that you've been hearing about, that $75 million, actually up to $77 million now, grant that we are competing for federal money to invest in infrastructure and workforce training projects here. He's been completely overworked, and I just want to make sure you may be overworked, but you are appreciated, so thank you. All right, so now we are going to, 3 weeks into the job, and, you know, like Betsy said, I've been here for a lot of years, and so I kind of figured, like, you know, I know all things Southern Nevada. But when I came on board and started having conversations with the team and a lot of you in the room, I learned that there's a lot of things that I don't know, and some things kind of surprised me. So we're going to play a game of fact or myth. And I am going to call on some of you in the audience, some of you who I saw this morning. I swear it's super easy, but it'll be fun. So, fact versus myth. And our first one I am going to throw out to Peter Guzman. Peter, where are you? Peter Guzman. Fact or myth? Southern Nevada has significantly diversified its economy over the past 10 years. Really, you just sat up here and we saw Michael Brown show us some numbers, but I like your spunk. You're just trying to debate with me, so. So no, it's myth, but thank you. I'm glad I tricked you. I'm glad I tricked you on that. So no, this is the Hatchman Diversity Index, and Director Brown mentioned this today, and we've been pretty steady over the past 10 years. Not a lot of increase, generally in the high 60s. You'll see a big jump there around 2000. That is not because all of a sudden we diversified our economy. It is because the number of jobs in the travel and leisure sector dropped, so the rest of the pie kind of increased. And to follow up with so the higher the number, the more diverse. Follow up with the same graphic that Director Brown showed you. This is the Hatchman Index compared to other states. And you'll see, mine might be a little bit, Director Brown had more current information than me, but we are ranking down there in the lowest of the United States. I think there are 7 states that are lower than us. But what's interesting to take a look at is that those states that surround us have significantly higher diversity numbers, which means that we have a lot to learn from them. It also means that we probably are geographically located, that we can start to capitalize on our assets. Just a matter, again, as Betsy mentioned, is really starting to work as a region to identify what those assets are and then just go out and market them and attract the businesses as appropriate. All right, question number 2. Let's see, Yolanda King, I saw you earlier. At the historical development pace, meaning the pace of development we've had, Southern Nevada has 20 years of effective land available, or 20 years of inventory available. Fact or myth? You are correct, because you know what? Yeah, she wins. Not like Peter. I'm just kidding. Peter, he teases me, so it's only fair. Fact, less than 15 years of land available here in Southern Nevada. Something we really need to be thinking of, and our panel did talk about that. It is on their minds. All right, Dan Tutland, I know I saw you earlier this morning. Where are you? Are you still here? Dan Tutland, tell me. So Dan, this is kind of a softball. He's in the commercial real estate industry. Available land for industrial development is one of our region's greatest assets. Fact, but we have a Ooh, that was well done. Brian Gordon, who helped me put these slides together, let's keep that in mind, that people can get tricky with their answers. So it actually is, yes, he is right, it is a scarcity. And I want to show you a couple slides that will, I hope, startle you a bit. And again, I think Jeremy Aguero has used these in the past, but I'm recycling them. This is the industrial land that is developed here in Southern Nevada. And this is the industrial land that is vacant or available for development in Southern Nevada. Now, we don't have Gene, we don't have Apex on here, but I use this simply to drive home a point that we do have some scarcity issues that we're going to need to start addressing. I know we are addressing, and we'll talk more about that. Okay, who can I give this one to? I wrote down some names of people. Clark. Oh, he's one of my bosses. He's our vice. Clark Wood. Where are you? All right. He's the vice chair, so he's with U.S. Bank and he's vice chair of the LVGEA. So, a beverage bottling plant can consume the water equivalent of 1 golf course annually. Well, I tricked you. I shouldn't do that to a boss, huh? It is myth because it actually is not 1, but 2 golf courses worth of annual allotment a year annually. Now, I called Dave Johnson this morning, who's with Southern Nevada Water Authority, because I had to get clarification on this. I said, so when you say consumes that water, do you mean like the water is consumed and not put back into Lake Mead, like it's really just gone? And he said, well, that depends. This is my favorite. That depends on whether or not the bottles with liquid in them were sold locally or whether they were moved outside of the state. So I'll give you a minute to think about that. Isn't that fun? That's my favorite fact. Okay, do we have, Frank Woodbeck, also one of my bosses. Here's a question for you, and I have to be, this one's a little bit of a softball, Frank, because not only is he one of my bosses, he's also head of the compensation committee for the LVGEA. So, the Southern Nevada Water Authority's credit rating by S&P, Standard & Poor, is AA stable, and our community's 50-year resource plan and conservation efforts are among the most progressive in the world. Hey, don't help him. Frank? I can't see. Well, yes, you are right. It is fact. We actually are recognized, and we don't get a lot of media on this or a lot of headlines on it, but we actually are recognized at a global level for having the most secure water plan in the United States, or actually in the world. So kudos to John Ensminger and the team on that. Even though we talk about the water scarcity issues and we do have them, rest assured we're not withering up and dying quite yet. We got very secure water conservation plan. And that's the backup to it. That first line is that S&P raised its issuer credit rating from AA- to A+, and that is due to their aggressive plan. All right, Nevada's average electrical retail price is 23% lower than the national average. And Ken Evans. Fact or fiction? Nobody help him. That is a fact. And I know that, yay, Ken! I know NV Energy is probably always publishing it, but it wasn't until I really took this job and started looking into how we compare to other regions that I paid attention to this statistic. We are 23% lower than the national average. That is a fact. And to let you know, we are 11% lower than the surrounding states, except for California. We are 56% lower than them. So certainly a competitive advantage for us when we're going out and diversifying and growing our economy. All right, I am going to give this one to MJ Maynard. Yay, CEO. Okay, are you ready? Pressure's on. Unemployed workers in Southern Nevada are well positioned to help companies expand and relocate. Well, it is. And I'll tell you about it. It is a myth. But this is one where Dan Tentland would be helpful too in kind of recrafting the answer. Yes, we are so lucky that we have got, well, it is a competitive advantage to us that we have got a lot of unemployed. We have the bodies here in Southern Nevada, whereas Phoenix, Salt Lake are struggling to find bodies to fill jobs. Where we are challenged at this point is making sure that those bodies are properly trained to meet the needs of the companies coming in. And we do, to that extent, there's so much to unpack here. And as you heard from the panel today and from Director Brown, workforce is the buzzword right now. And there are so many initiatives and efforts that are going on. And this workforce development blueprint document that we've been working with several partners on here in Southern Nevada will be unveiled here probably before the end of the month. And it is truly a plan and has recommendations in it for how we go about harnessing the labor force that we've got here, the potential labor force, and getting them trained. Lots to unpack, and I am thinking to my team that we had talked about whether or not we should do a webinar related to the unveiling of this. And based on some of the comments, does that mean I got to wrap up? I am thinking that we probably do want to do it. It seems to be an interest in doing that, so. All right, next question. Who have I not gotten yet? Ooh, I'm gonna do Jaime. Jaime Cruz, Head of Workforce Connections. Okay, Jaime, new jobs to Southern Nevada in 2021 exceeded those in 2019. So during pandemic year, exceeded pre-pandemic year. Fact or fiction? No. You are correct. That is a fact. Yeah. A few caveats. I'll clarify. It is we're calculating jobs that came through the LVGEAs, the conduit for tax incentives. Those are the jobs that we're talking about right now. And I do have to give credit out to all of the panel that you saw up here. They are the economic development officers of their districts, their jurisdictions, and they are finding these companies along. I got to give credit out to NAOP and commercial real estate brokers who are constantly out there looking for companies who want to move here. So in 2019, we had 21 companies, 3,800 jobs. And last year, during the pandemic, we had 39 companies and 6,200 jobs. And our average wage increased. So that is absolutely amazing. In my short time here, one of the things that I've learned is the principle of economic development success are based on two things. One is that you have got to have you've got to have workforce, but then you've also got to have wages that are increasing associated with that workforce so that you continue to grow the economy. So, all right, last one. I'm going to give this one I saved for my friend Mary Beth Sewald from Vegas Chamber. In spite of our challenges, Southern Nevada continues to grow. No! Yes, I'm going to say fact too, and there's so much to unpack with that. There's so much to unpack. We have continued to grow. Showed you the numbers, but this isn't the forum for doing that. We'll at our perspective event in June. We will start to unpack why it is that we have grown and what the challenges are as we start to move forward, where we need to be focused in a lot more detail. We'll have data and statistics to share with you. But I want to, as I close, I know I got 2 minutes, that data and statistics, when we do go to review it with you and share why we have grown, it will never show some very important components as to why we have been resilient, why we've been able to grow. So I'm going to show you some people who we all owe a ton of thanks to, because they built the infrastructure that allowed us to grow despite the fact that we were hit with some of the most unprecedented economic blows to this economy. It was their vision and foresight and frankly balls that allowed us to keep going and grow the economy. So and I don't care whether you like these people or not, I'm not sure I like all of them, but we still owe them we still owe them a huge thank you. And one is Bruce Woodbury. It was because of Bruce Woodbury. Yeah, for those of you, I know he's been gone a while, but he's been out of public office for a while. But Bruce, in the 90s, he learned that if we ever wanted to have that beltway built, that we were going to have to do it ourselves. The federal government said, yes, we'll give you money, but you have to go through our 15-year environmental process. So he said, the heck with that. We are going to go ahead. He lobbied and championed for it was called Question 10, I think, back in the day, right? And it was a sales tax increase, which allowed us to build that Bruce Woodbury Beltway 15 years faster than we would have if we just relied on federal funds, which meant that allowed us to continue to grow and have access to land even during some very challenging economic times for us. So Bruce, I hope I'm not talking. Pat Mulroy, sometimes you love her, sometimes you hate her, right? But Pat, man, so here's the level of the water. Here's that first, and I'm simplifying. Here's the first pipe that comes in, and the water's like, she's like, oh, that pipe's not going to work. Let's build a second one. So we built a second one. You're like, oh man, that second straw is not going to work. She's like, here's what we're doing. We are tunneling under Lake Mead, and then we're popping up. We're going to get the cleanest, purest water from the bottom. The heck with all the rest of them downstream. We're getting ours. It was an $800 million project, probably more than that by the time it was done. But thanks to that third straw, we are able to continue to grow, and we have all prospered because of it. And then Randy Walker, again, love him or not. And these people, again, they don't care if you like them or not. They don't care. Randy made a pinky promise to the community that never, ever would the airport be the reason that the community couldn't continue to grow. Never, ever would the airport cap the travel and tourism industry or the rest of the growth or the freight operations. And so we have Terminal 3, we have the cargo center, and then he introduced the idea of the supplementary airport down in Jean. We used to call it the Ivanpah Airport. That is on hold now, but because of him, that land, and Senator Reid, that land is protected. So some amazing leaders. I know, okay, I'm almost done, I swear. Oh, I better just go. Okay, so next steps. So we're kind of at this tricky point, right, where you heard today, and I think I brought it up, highlighted in the slides, that we've got water issues, we've got land issues, we've got workforce issues, one that I haven't mentioned yet. So water and land are tough for us as a community to overcome. That's going to require innovation and some congressional action and some creativity. Workforce, we are working on right now. One I didn't mention today, and I want to throw it out, especially to the panel who was up here on the chairs, is that for us to stay competitive against those other regions, and we really need to take a look at the barricades to entry for companies who do want to relocate here. When a company, a larger one especially, wants to come here, they want to know that they can get up and running as soon as possible, that we can get the infrastructure to them, but also that our permitting processes are not extremely burdensome. And it did scare me a little bit, yeah, I know, it scared me a little bit to learn that Phoenix is onto that game too and is trying to really streamline their processes. So work is called out for us. Next steps, we're going to need leadership, we're going to need some balls. I know, I just like saying that out loud. But we've done it before, and we will do it again. And one of the things I want to leave on a note that very much excites me, this Build Back Better grant, which we have talked about, which is a regional grant. See all those logos on there? It's the first time all those logos have been on one grant application to the federal government. So. And I'm done. Look, 3 minutes over. Love you.
All right, I know we're over, but wasn't that incredible? We have a lot in store for you this year. Tina shared some of the upcoming events. We look forward to seeing you there. But most importantly, thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you for caring about this community. Thank you for growing your businesses here. Let's go do this together. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everybody.